All right. Okay. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Our discussion for today will be on um, these items here. Okay, will be on saving GIMP files, different types of files in GIMP, basics of layers, creating, duplicating, and moving layers. All right. Then after that, we shall have two mini projects, okay, or two main activities, just to make sure that we master what we have discovered in those four elements. Saving GIMP files, different types of files in GIMP, basics of layers, that's creating a layer, duplicating layer, and moving layer. All right. Okay. So let me go. Let me hope that everyone goes to open your GIMP application, right? So that you can follow along. Okay, now there are some files I gave to you, I shared with you the other day. Let me try to share the screen now. Am I sharing my screen? Oh, yeah, I think. Okay, open. Okay, so I want you to open this file or any other file, but this one will be better. Open this file. There's this file I shared with you the other day. It's in the work files, right? If you go in our portal, in the work files, there's a file that is known as, I want us to use which file. Okay, let me go to my here, where I share my own, I keep my own files. Okay, work files, images, section 4. There's a GIMP file too. Okay, open. There is this GIMP file too. All right, okay. Now, what I want to talk about here briefly about these files is that basically in GIMP, we have quite a number of files, all right? And we must know the function of each of the files, or when we need to apply, when we need to save our document, our GIMP document in a particular file, right? For example, if we want to print our document, we must know a particular format where we're going to save it. If we want to share our GIMP document with someone else who is not using GIMP, but probably is working on the same project with us, but using Photoshop, then we have to know what kind of format we should save our file. And also, if we want to upload our document online, we must know what is the right file format. Okay. And if we want to save our document for future editing, we should also know what kind of file format we should use. All right. Now, the traditional file format for GIMP, as we mentioned the other day in our earlier discussion, is .xcf. Okay. If we open this file here, okay, and you just say save, all right? If you look at here, if you look on my screen here, on the left-hand side, you can see GIMP file 2.xcf. This is known as the native file format for GIMP. Okay, just like PSD is the native file format for Photoshop. Okay. Now, what does this mean? When we want to, as I mentioned, probably have mentioned this, but I have to emphasize it again. If we want to save this document or this document here, okay, and we want to have it edited in the near future, all right? So the right file format to use would be .xcf extension. If you are going to be editing your document in the future using the GIMP application, right? Now, if you want to save your document finally and you want to upload it online and you know you don't want to edit it anymore, you have the final version, then you are either going to save it into .png or .jpeg, okay? We know .png is good for maintaining and preserving quality of your document, especially when you're going to upload online, right? So that's how you should save it. I already mentioned, if you want to share it with someone else who is using Photoshop, you are working on the same document. Photoshop does not open .xcf extension, all right? So therefore, the only thing you can do if you're working in GIMP, you have to save in .psd. So where do we find the different file extensions? If you look on my left-hand side here, select file type. If you click here, you're going to see all the file types here by extension. Okay, they are all here. So you can actually see the file types here. Okay. So from here, if you say show, you can see the show files that you have used before. And then here we can see the file type extensions, okay, which are here. So you can choose which one, okay. So normally we can find them here, right? Okay. Or if you just know the extension, you just have to highlight here, okay, and save. One thing I want to mention quickly also is that when you are saving, we have two options. When you save file and you say save, automatically it goes to .xcf. Okay. When you use this option, you know that you are actually saving this document in a native GIMP file format, because one of the reasons could be you would like to edit this document. You are still working on it. It's a work in progress, and therefore you want to edit it in the future, right? So you do that. Okay. However, if you want to export it to, if you want to save it in PNG format or JPEG, okay, you are going to say file, this time not save or not save as, but export as, all right? So when you say export as, you will have automatically JPEG placed here, as you can see on my left-hand side, okay? It's not .xcf anymore, it is .jpeg. Now it's up to you to decide whether you really want .jpeg or want something else. Then you can go here. You can go here to choose what other format you may want. All right. If you don't want JPEG, but you want to save this document because you know you want to share it with a friend who is working with you on this maybe group project, but is not using GIMP, is using Photoshop. So you're going to look here for the right extension. Okay, Photoshop extension. Okay, and so then you'll find Photoshop image. Okay, and the extension is PSD. So instead of JPEG, you just click Photoshop image, and automatically here it will change to .psd. Okay. If you want to print it, okay, and you want to use PDF, you have this, and automatically here it become .pdf. Okay. So you have all the choices here for saving your different file extension formats in this box here. Select the file type. Okay. So you have the file types here. There are many. Some of them, I have not used them. I don't know who uses them, but different people use them because they have machines that actually and applications that have this kind of extensions. All right. But you just have to know what kind of extension you would like for yourself. All right. Okay. So these are the ones here. So we have GIF. Okay. We have PNG. We have JPEG. We have PDF. Right. We have PSD. Okay. We have so all file extensions are here. Okay. So I hope that one is understood. That's the first thing I wanted to point out. All right. Now, second thing I want to point out here is that if you want to save your document and it has more than one layer, and you would like to preserve those layers, okay, you only have one option, and the option is to save in for example, if this document here, for example, let us first do this. Okay. If we want to duplicate this layer, for example, right? Okay, if I duplicate this layer here, right? And I have two. Now I have two files, two layers. Okay, this is just for purpose of demonstration. If I have these two layers, okay, and I want them to be saved separately without merging, I have to save them using a .xcf extension. The moment we save this file with a .png, or .jpeg, the file, your layers will merge, and you cannot have the chance to edit those layers anymore. All right. So you have to know that. Okay. Once you do that, if you are going to save these two files, okay, and I want to get them saved in safely, and I want to open the file later with two layers visible here and able to be edited if possible, then I must save with .xcf extension. The moment you export, as I told you here, if you say file, okay, and you say instead of save and you say export as, okay, if it is just .jpeg, the moment you save this, the moment you export this actually, because you're not saving here, you export here. The moment you export, you are going to be merging the two, the layers. The layers will be merged and they cannot be separated. That's it. Okay. So you just have to be very conscious about that. Okay. Okay, so I hope that will be very, hope that will be very clear. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is I'm preparing this because you have an activity after this, and you're going to be doing an activity based on this explanation I have given here. Okay, that's why I'm emphasizing it, and it's also for your future knowledge. If you're going to be using GIMP, okay, you need to have that knowledge to know how you are going to be handling your files, especially when it comes to purposes of saving your file. Right. Now, the next thing we are going to do now, we are going to be looking at is um, we're going to be looking at the basics of layers. Okay. Anyone with any questions here before we move on? As far as files are concerned, okay, file formats for GIMP. All right, okay. All right. If this is clear, I will close this. So normally here I can just close here like this. And like I said, discuss changes. Okay. The next thing I want to do, I want to open a file here, which I have also shared with you in the workbook. I mean, in the workbook files there, the link that I gave the other day. So I have uploaded, you see today's date, which is 14 to 25. The file is there. What is that file? The file that I'm talking about is, let me just locate it here first. Work files, images and files. It is in section 5. It is called layers, layers.xcf. Okay. Okay, layers.xcf is the file. Okay. Now, before we go to a digital environment talking about layers, we need to sort of try to relate it to our physical environment. In our environment, we also have layers. Okay. An example of the layers we have, I will ask you now to give me some examples as well. I'm giving you 1 or 2 examples. I want you to share an example of a layer in the physical environment before we proceed. Okay. Now, one of the examples we have, okay, is previously, before they could digitize the road tax, okay, for Malaysian motorists, okay, if you are driving a car or you have a motorbike, okay, before we used to have a road tax pasted on our windshield on the car, in front of the car, right? So the glass, the windshield of the car is a layer, can be regarded as a layer. And then when you put a sticker, the sticker of the road tax previously, or now when you put a sticker of the, for either university student or staff, to indicate that you are either staff or whatever category in the university, for purposes of the security department at the entrance to identify your vehicle, to know that you are actually legally allowed to enter and park somewhere, right? You're going to have a sticker. So your sticker is another layer. So you have a layer pasted on a layer. The windshield of the car is a layer. Your sticker becomes another layer that you paste on the windshield. All right. I remember when we were young, we used to have our teachers, even sometimes these days also people do, actually. You have margin paper or sometimes manila paper. You ask your students, for those of us who have taught young learners before, you ask or you have gone through this system as well. Your teacher asks you to cut out some pictures from the newspaper and paste on a margin paper or a manila paper. So the margin paper or manila paper is there. is the layer. Then you, when whatever picture you paste on, adds another layer. Okay, so you have two layers. So in other words, anything that where we can add, which is, it could be wood, it could be glass, it could be, you know, it is a layer in our physical environment where we can actually add another layer. All right. So the same thing happens in our GIMP environment. We have layers. All right. Now, in GIMP, we have layers, and we have what we call a background layer. Okay. So, and then we have background layer normally is a layer where is the layer that when you open, oh, now there is a difference between background layer in GIMP and the background layer in Photoshop. If you have used Photoshop before, because many people are very familiar with Photoshop. Now, Photoshop has a dedicated background layer. When you start your document in Photoshop, you have a layer that is dedicated as a background layer, cannot change. It is known, it has to be there. In GIMP, when you create your first document, or when you open your first file, that constitutes your background layer, right? The first file that you create, or the first document that you create in GIMP, like what we did the other day, or the first file like this. If this is the first file just in front of us, if it is the first file we have just opened, we never opened it before, it becomes our background layer, right? It acts as both background layer, okay, and also pixel layer, because what we see now on my right, on my left-hand side here, okay, I have two layers. One is named as layers, another one is sunlight, okay? So actually this one, if I do like, if I click, if I turn off the layers, what I call the layers layer, right? If I turn it off, I have a blank document here of the sunlight, okay? Because of the light, and there's no, so the color, you cannot see the light. It is blank, it looks blank, right? And when I turn on the layer with an image, or what we call the pixel layer. So this one is both a background layer, because we have, it is the first, actually the image, where the image is sitting. And also what constitutes the image on top here is the pixel layer, right? So the pixel is what actually shows, from the pixels we're able to see the colors, okay? The higher the concentration of the pixel, the better the quality. The lower the concentration of the pixels, poor the quality, right? So, so this one shows us so the pixel layer is the one where our image sits, which allows us to see the image. Okay, so now here we have two layers, right? Now, what this kind of layers, you can decide to actually add something extra on top of this image, right? But it's not advisable in GIMP to add extra content or elements on top of another, on top of a layer, when you can actually separate the layers. The advantage of having separate layers is that, for example, if you have your different layers and each layer having its own content, it becomes easier when you want to edit your content. Okay. Now, if I add some content here on top of this layer, where I have an image and I save it, it will be very difficult if I want to edit if suddenly I make a mistake, for example, and I want to edit the content on top of the image. It becomes very difficult, okay? And I may have to start all over again. So if we don't want that kind of hassle in doing work, it's advisable to create separate layers for most of the things that we have, okay, in our document, okay? Now, first of all, with a document like this, we can rearrange. We have some two elements. We have two tools down here. You can rearrange your layers, move one up, one down, or you can simply just grab it and move it down or move it up, okay, using your, you can use your, you can use your cursor. That's one way, one thing you can do, right? So if we wanted to add something here, it would be advisable to add an extra layer, right? For example, now here I will, what I will do, I'll add a new layer, okay? And I will call it paint layer. And okay. So I have a paint layer in between here. So the paint layer is actually empty. Nothing is there now, right? Okay. So here, this is where you can actually on and off. You can switch on and can switch off any layer that you want. Okay, using these, little icons here, right? Now, if I take paintbrush here, okay, and first of all, before this, if I select the sunlight layer here, and I take a paintbrush, and I try to paint here, okay, it doesn't seem to work. Why? This is called a layer boundary. Okay, let me show you this one first. What you see here is the layer boundary. Okay, that yellow line. We shall talk about layer boundaries later. That layer boundary actually stands for the, yes, I'll add you later. Okay, it stands for, it shows the layer boundary. We shall talk about this layer boundary later in detail. But what I want to show you now is that if I select this sunlight layer, right, and I try to draw here, nothing happens. Okay, I want to draw on this image actually, but nothing happens because I have not selected the image file, the file with the images. Now, if I want to actually have an effect on this, I have to select the right image. Okay, I have to select the right image. Layer, right? Okay. For example, if I do like this, okay, now I have selected, because I selected the image, the layer which has the images, I'm able to, my paintbrush is able to show the effect, the result. And because I have selected the right image, I mean the right layer. You choose the right layer, you can have the effect of what you want to do. Okay? But the only issue, the only worry here is that I'm now using a paintbrush directly on the image layer. And if I save it, I am not able to edit it properly, I'm going to spoil my image. Okay. So what I do, I go to edit and do paintbrush. Okay. I want to have this paintbrush applied on a separate layer, which I just created, which is the paint layer, this one. Okay. So if I do like this time, okay, this now on the paint layer. So on the paint layer, right? So the paint layer is the one I have used to actually do this work. And now what I want to do, I want to duplicate. Okay. I want to duplicate this layer. I want to have a copy of this and to create something of some kind of a design, probably. Okay. So I'll go here. I'll create duplicate. Actually, this shows copy. It becomes copy. Okay. So now I have a paint layer copy here. Okay. Now I have an extra layer, which is the paint layer copy. Right. Now, if I want to move the duplicate copy now to create something. Okay. I want to create something of a design of some sort. Okay. So what do? I must make sure that I select the paint layer copy. Okay. And I'm going to be using the move tool. I make sure that the move tool options here, I have a move the active layer selected. Okay. So the active layer is the one I can move, and that's the paint layer copy. So I can grab it here. I can move it like this. Okay. If I want. So I can create something like this. So by moving layers like this, you can create something that you want, some kind of design that you desire. Okay. And then I can save this if I want this, if this is what I want it to look like, I can save this. Okay. And my future file, when I open it, it will show the result of a moved layer, layer movement. No one will actually know that I moved the layer, but because that's what I wanted to create a design, so the only way I can do it is to do it that way, right? So by moving the layer. So that's why that's why layers are very, very useful, because you can actually use them to create, to have, to actually, they can help you to express your imagination, okay, in creating things. And then you can save your files. You move it like this, for example, you save it. And then someone may be amazed how you actually were able to do that. They may not know. Because you didn't want to draw it directly, but you wanted to have your creation based on layer movements. So you can duplicate a layer, you can move your layer based on how you want it, until when you feel satisfied, then you can just save it. Okay. So if you want now to save this kind of file here, all right, and you actually want to edit it in the future, as I mentioned before, the appropriate format will be to save file, save, okay, because now it has become bigger, so many layers. It takes a bit of time, okay, but the default file format will be .xcf, okay, because if you save this, or if you export this, because when we actually finally we want a final product, and we say export, okay, we say file, and then we say export as. When we do that, we are going to have a final product of a saved document, either in PNG, PDF, JPEG, which is going to be difficult for us to edit in the future if we want to. Okay. But if I'm happy with this, that this is what I want to be final, then I can save it, I can export. Okay, and save it as such. Right. So therefore, I'm able to have different, then I can create different creations also using this kind of using repaint, using paintbrush, and then moving layers, okay, and create something of that nature. All right. Okay. Any questions here? So, okay. So I will quickly go through here some of the file types. Um, okay. So if you want to change the name of your layers here, it's very easy, right? You can just click on the layer, and then you can just write the name that you want. Right? You can just rename. You just click on the file name, on the layer name, and then you sunlight. Okay, if you want the same name or you want a different name, you can change. So naming your layers is quite easy. Why do you want to have your layers named? You want to know the naming of your layer should try to express or explain, should have some kind of connection with what you have on that layer, so that if you are looking for that layer in a huge stack of many layers, it's easy for you to find. And don't give more than one layer the same name. Okay, even if it's different extension, it may be confusing. It's better to have different names, right? Okay. Okay, we don't have any questions here so far. Are we still there? Okay. I think you seem to be looking a bit sleepy. 9:43. Yeah? Okay. Let me give you something to do, something to warm you up. Okay. Let me stop sharing this. Okay. Let me go directly to. Let us have something to do now, so that we can warm up. We can have. Okay. We have two small projects here. Okay, which we want to engage in. So I want you to go to the portal, your project one and project two. All right. Project one will be mainly about creating layers, and project two will include um, duplicating, naming, and moving layers. Okay. So let us do our two projects one and two. Okay. Okay, if I share here, if you go here, you have this project one, you have project two. Okay, let's try our hand on this to try our mastery of this before we can forget what we have just covered now. Okay, when you finish the project, share with us. If you finish one, share with us. If you finish two, share with us. We want to see.